Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today it's all true. Every single piece of advice, every single diet tip, dating tip, every single piece of personal fitness, advice on relationships, advice on learning a new language, all of these things that you see on the internet, every single one of them is true in some way or another. What really matters is how you execute it and your mindset. So I've been thinking about this a lot recently, especially with my ADD inspired For You page and my recommended posts and what I see on YouTube. There is an incredible urge in our society to receive all the information. How do you do this? How do you do this? How do you beat this Pokemon level? How do you do woodworking? How do you do stonemasonry? How do you survive in the middle of the forest by building a shelter? There are a billion questions being asked and simultaneously answered on the internet. And every single one of them is true. And what I mean by that is because the universe and, life in general has an infinite number of ways that you can live it. There are an infinite number of possibilities and potentialities, and every single human being is different, even identical twins. My mom's an identical twin, and she's totally different than her other twin. They have the same DNA, and yet they're totally different people. So every single human being, you included, is a unique creation. You have never existed before, and you will never exist again. You are singularly independent. And because of that, your body works differently than other people. You can eat different foods without having a reaction, whereas some other people will have a horrible reaction. You can operate on a specific number of hours of sleep, certain diet. Some people don't develop plaque in their teeth, and so their teeth just stay fine. They never have to touch their teeth ever. Whereas others brush their teeth 4 times a day and struggle with cavities and all kinds of problems. Every single human is so unique and individual, and there's an infinite number of possibilities. And so when you see advice online about do this, eat that, go here, work out this, watch this thing, read this book, every single piece of advice you'll see on the internet works for somebody. And that is basically the infinite potentiality of life. And so everything is true, but it might not be true for you. And that's the problem. That is the focus of this video today, about because you're dealing with two infinites, the infinite diversity of the human race and who you are and your human lived experience, and the infinite number of possibilities and different things that you get to do in this short amount of time. Everything is true. And now I'm going to give you the practical side. This means that you're going to have to be a scientist. You're going to have to be engaged in the scientific method. You're going to have to try some of these things. I found my body, I like eating once a day. That really works for me. Other people, my friends, family, would faint if they didn't have breakfast, get lightheaded, it doesn't work for their bodies. Some of them would get so hangry, like angry because they're hungry, that they just wouldn't function. And yet if I eat breakfast, I feel kind of gross and I need to go back to bed. So it works for my body. Intermittent fasting, eating once a day, awesome. I have discovered that through 27 years of experimentation on what works and what doesn't. My body likes being fasted. And so I don't need to listen to this study, that study, this thing, try to figure out how to optimize it. I just optimize it by experimenting. Sure, I'll listen to a podcast about the benefits of fasting and, is there a specific electrolyte I can take that enhances it? Sure, I'm open to new suggestions and new tweaking, but I know fundamentally my body does really well on fasting. I like it. I'm happy. I'm healthy. It works for me. Might not work for you. And every single thing you see online, how to learn a language, how to do anything, might work for you. Might be awesome. It might be totally true. Somebody might be speaking absolute facts and you use their advice, you use this tip, boom, you're speaking French, or you're building a shelter out in the woods and just thriving. I have always been a very big self-learner. I've never really learned well from teachers or sitting in a classroom and listening to a lecture. I've always had to go off on my own and discover things and figure out how it works and create like a little mental map in my brain. And that works for me. I was always told, oh, you have ADD, you have this learning disability, you're never going to do this, you're never going to do this. I just had to find the right method, the right way to do it. And through experimentation and listening to advice and then putting it into practice, because it was true for me, I was able to get where I wanted to go. And you can too. So exactly what I'm saying right now might work for you perfectly. Other people might just go, that's dumb. Not everything is true. Not everything works. When in reality, it just isn't for them. And that's totally fair. You know, some of the advice I've said over my, time as a social media person, probably really bad advice for some people. It's probably great advice for a few of you. Like a few of you might have listened to something I've said and gone, man, that's so good. I'm going to try that. And it works great for you. And I'm so happy about that. And if you took a piece of advice or something that I said in a video and it just didn't work out for you, I'm really sorry it didn't work out for you. But that just means you've got to find a new method. You've got to find your way of doing it, because all of these things are true and accurate, and it's a good representation of, figuring out what you want to do. But it just might not have worked for your body, for who you are, your situation. We're all unique, we're all diverse, and sometimes it just doesn't go your way, and that's okay. But the important thing is to not give up and to just keep searching and keep finding the things that do work. And the really important part of this whole thing is that once you find something that you truly believe works for you, write it down, make a note of it, make sure that you integrate it into your life. I think there are so many times where we rediscover something and we're like, oh my gosh, I used to do that as a kid and it was so good. I have such a good memory of it. And we forget these things. We forget, they might get incorporated into our routine and then we slowly start changing them over the years. And suddenly it's a totally different thing. It's like when they say that your body is never more than 7 years old and your cells completely replace themselves over 7 or 12 years or whatever it is. Eventually, what you were doing might have completely changed and you might have to go back to that fundamental thing that worked for you. So I thought of this recently, and like how much of the advice that we're listening to, like I'll be on TikTok or something and it'll be like 5 crazy ways to learn a new whatever. And I'll watch the video and not a single one of those ways would work for me in any way, shape or form. And I was thinking, well, that's got to work for somebody, that advice about like listening to a show in French or something, or writing down 400 words in French or whatever. Those methods probably work for somebody. We all learn differently. We all see the world differently. And so it stands to reason that that video is true for somebody. And when you get into the idea of like facts and the reality of the world, that gets a whole other like postmodernism philosophical quandary. But and I'm sure it's each of those things is true for somebody. Like we all see the world in a different way, and so even those ideas are probably true for somebody. And the crazy political stuff, I'm sure somebody thinks the world is flat and that is true for them. And if they want to live their life like that, who am I to stop them, as long as they don't stop me from thinking that it's like an oblique spheroid or a sphere, whatever it is. So I just think, if you see something online that really frustrates you, that makes you annoyed because it's not true for you, just remember it's not true for you. It might be true for someone else. And like I said, as long as it's not interfering with the way the world is working and fundamental things like that, great. If you're going to deny historical facts or something like that, that's a different conversation that we can have somewhere else. But I just think that when it comes to personal growth, learning new things, engaging in the world, sometimes your reality is just that. It's your reality, and different strokes for different folks. So that's all I really wanted to say. I know it's kind of like random and I seem like very passionate about it, but I was in the sauna today and I was like, you know what? That's crazy that like all of these crazy like self-help things, it'll be true for somebody. I remember giving a friend the Tao Te Ching, which is a book of Taoist knowledge and understanding, and it's Chinese philosophy for those who don't know, and they didn't get it at all. And I was just amazed because that book changed my life. Like that, the teachings in the Tao Te Ching completely altered the way that I see the reality of the world. It gave me this go with the flow energy. It relieved so much anxiety and personal struggle, and it's made me a human. It's made me a totally different human. And someone else reads that like short book. It's not a big book. Reads that and goes, "Oh, well, I didn't really get it." Like it's just a bunch of like little platitudes, and they don't really mean anything. It's like to move forward, go backwards. I don't get it. And I was just blown away that somebody could read that book and go, yeah, whatever. Like for me, it was fundamentally ground shifting. And for them, it's just like, whatever. But I have learned it doesn't work for everybody. And that's totally okay. It is totally fine to have a different perspective on it. And, you see people getting like enraged about religion and the idea of like, oh, well, I believe this. It's true for you. And if you're not gonna, burn me at the stake, go for it. Have fun. Enjoy. As long as you're not gonna interfere with the way I'm living, believe what you'd like. There is no problem with that. If that is your truth, that is great. And people should be allowed to have their truth. Again, as long as you're not coming for other people and like imposing your will on others, because that's not okay. So if it's true for you and it works, awesome. And if you've got to go searching and be the eternal wanderer and explorer, that's awesome as well. There's nothing wrong with that. So I will leave it there. Let me know what you think about it being true for you, but might not be true for others. Man, that was a hard one. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.